Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I am very excited to be sharing with you all some of my favorite fairy tale retellings. I am definitely a big fan of fairy tale retellings. I think they're so fun, and I think I do prefer them more than original fairy tales. There are definitely some original fairy tales that I love, but for the most part, I do find myself more of a fairy tale retelling type of reader, and I have a really long list of books that I want to recommend that are fairy tale retellings. A couple of them are looser retellings, they're not straight up retellings, but I thought this would be a great time to share these recommendations with you as there is a readathon happening this month called Faebruary, and I will have all the hosts for this readathon linked down in the description box. I am quietly participating in the readathon. I didn't make an official TBR video or anything like that, but I am trying to read some fairy tales this month. But if you did want to know more about the readathon, like I said, the hosts are in the description box, so you can check out their channels and their announcement videos and all of that. But without further preamble, let's go ahead and dive into the book recommendations. Not all of these were 5 stars, I just wanted to mention. Some of them I didn't love as much, but I do think there are people out there who would really enjoy these books, so I did want to recommend as many as possible. Starting off with the first book, it is a retelling of one of my favorite fairy tales, which is Beauty and the Beast, and the book that I am talking about is Beauty by Robin McKinley. This one's about a girl named Beauty, of course, and rather than having a lot of outward beauty, she is much more the courageous one, where her sisters are outwardly beautiful. She has a lot of courage. She and her father and sisters do live in the forest, and her father ends up being trapped in the Beast's castle. Beauty takes his place as prisoner, and the story kind of goes from there. This retelling I found to be a lot more similar to the Disney movie, which I very much enjoyed. This is definitely one of my favorite retellings, and I recommend it to anyone who likes Beauty and the Beast, likes fairy tale retellings. It is a really good one. Next, I have 2 books by an author that I really enjoy. I think she is an amazing writer. The first book here is Daughter of the Forest, and the author is Juliet Marillier. And in Daughter of the Forest, we have a girl named Sorcia, and her brothers are basically cursed. They turn into swans. This is all due to the woman that her father has married, as Sorcia's mother had died and her father remarried. This woman casts a spell on her brothers, and Sorcia goes on a journey as she is the only person who can break the spell. Throughout Sorcia's journey, she encounters so much. She has to deal with so much. She encounters otherworldly creatures. She's kidnapped to a foreign land, and she just has so many obstacles she has to face, but her love of her brothers is basically what drives her. This is such a beautiful story, some of my favorite characters in any book that I've read. And another book by Juliet Marillier that I also really love is Wildwood Dancing. And this book is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. And it's also mixed with Romanian or Transylvanian folklore, which I really enjoy, as I myself am Romanian, so I really enjoyed this one. I really like how the back of the book kind of summarizes the story. It says, 5 adventurous sisters, 4 dark creatures, 3 magical gifts, 2 forbidden lovers, 1 enchanted frog, cross the threshold into the Wildwood and enter a land of magic, daring, betrayal, and true love. It's truly one of the most whimsical books I've ever read. I love it so much. Next up is a book that is also a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and this one was not a favorite, but I still very much enjoyed it. That is Entwined by Heather Dixon. This one is about Azalea and her sisters who are invited into this silver forest where they can dance the night away by the keeper, and he extends this invitation but at a cost. He has very sinister motives, and the sisters find themselves basically trapped, and the story goes from there. It is very whimsical, very magical, and I do really enjoy Heather Dixon's writing, so this is another one I would definitely recommend. Another book by Heather Dixon, this is an all-time favorite book for me, and that is The Enchanted Sonata. It is based on the Nutcracker, which to me is one of the best fairy tales ever. And The Enchanted Sonata is just such a beautiful story. It blends the Nutcracker and the Pied Piper. We have Clara, who receives a Nutcracker as a gift, and she's whisked away to another world, an enchanted empire of beautiful palaces, fickle fairies, enormous rats, and a prince. And also an evil musician who has motives of his own, and the story is just so good. This is one of my favorites of all time. I wholeheartedly, highly recommend this one. I also want to recommend a series, and I wouldn't say it's a favorite series, but I do think each book in the series is very fun, and they're all retellings of separate fairy tales. So I'm talking about the 4 Kingdoms series by Melanie Sellier. Each book is a retelling of a different fairy tale. The first one is The Princess Companion, which is a retelling of The Princess and the Pea. And this one I think is one of my favorites in the series. It's just a book that I read at the right time. I was in the mood for something very cozy, charming. A simple fairy tale retelling kind of feels like a Disney movie, and I definitely got that from this book. Book 2 in the series is The Princess Fugitive, which is a reimagining of Little Red Riding Hood. And I have to say, the covers of the series are just gorgeous. I love these types of covers, even though I'm not the biggest fan of people on covers, but regardless, I just think they're so cute. Then we have a couple novellas in the series, The Coronation Ball. I guess this is more of a short story. It's not really novella length, but this one is a retelling of Cinderella. Then we have Happily Ever Afters, a reimagining of Snow White and Rose Red. This one is a little longer than the previous, so this one's more of a novella. Then we have book 3 in the series, The Princess Pact, which is a twist on Rumpelstiltskin. I love how autumnal this cover is. Then we have book 3.5, which is a novella, A Midwinter's Wedding, and this one is a retelling of The Frog Prince. Book 4 I actually just finished a few days ago. That is The Princess Game, a reimagining of Sleeping Beauty, and this one was very fun. And the last book in the series, which I'm just adding on even though I haven't read it yet, but I do plan on reading it very soon, is The Princess Search, and this one is a retelling of The Ugly Duckling. The Four Kingdoms series is YA. It can get quite angsty, which is not my favorite thing, but I did overall enjoy each book that I have read. Next is a series that I do consider to be a favorite. I really enjoyed each book in the series, and that is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I could not recommend fairy tale retellings without mentioning this series. They are just some of the best books I've read that are fairy tale retellings, but with a sci-fi twist. The first book is Cinder, and this one is a retelling of course, Cinderella, only in this one, Cinder is a cyborg, and Prince Charming is Prince Kai, and they were just so sweet. I loved this book so much. Book 2 is Scarlet, and this one is more of a loose retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and her love interest is called Wolf, and it's just such a fun book. Book 3, which I would probably say is my favorite, is Cress. This one is a retelling of Rapunzel, only instead of being trapped in a tower, Cress is trapped in a satellite. And then book 4, Winter, this is a loose retelling of Snow White, and it is very fun. I really enjoyed how the series wrapped up with this book. Such a great series. I do want to recommend 2 books by Shannon Hale. The first one is The Book of 1,000 Days, and this one is a retelling of Maid Maleen by the Brothers Grimm. I don't remember ever reading the original fairy tale, but I really like what Shannon Hale did with this story. It was very fun, just a great story. And then of course, The Goose Girl, also by Shannon Hale. I definitely recommend the whole series, but the first one in particular, it's so good. Such a whimsical and beautiful story with one of my favorite animal characters, Falada, and oh, it's just so good. Would highly recommend. We also have Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This one is a very cute YA fantasy, and it is a retelling of The Wild Swans by Hans Christian Andersen. I believe it's more of a loose retelling though, and I haven't read the original story. But in this one we have Shiori, who is basically cursed and banished, and her brothers are turned into cranes and she has to save them. It's kind of similar to Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, but definitely much more whimsical and cute and YA for sure. Daughter of the Forest is an adult fantasy, Six Crimson Cranes is YA, and just so whimsical. It's very much like a Disney movie in a book. I also want to recommend Hunted by Megan Spooner. This one I haven't read in a very long time, so I don't remember too much about it, but it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which is one of my favorite fairy tales, and I do remember really enjoying it. It is very wintry, perfect for this time of year, very atmospheric. I will read the summary as it is shorter, and I just think it explains the plot very well. It says, Beauty knows the beast's forest in her bones and in her blood. Here in the wilderness, Yeva is under no pressure to make idle chatter with vapid baronesses, or to submit to marrying a wealthy gentleman. Here she feels one with the ebb and flow of life. Here she is home. But when Yeva's father goes missing in the woods, she sets her sights on one prey, the creature he'd been obsessively tracking just before his disappearance. Deaf to her sister's protests, Yeva hunts this strange beast back into his own territory, a cursed valley, a ruined castle, and a world of creatures that Yeva's only heard about in fairy tales. A world that can bring her ruin or salvation. I definitely need to reread this book, but I also wanted to recommend it. Next is an adult fantasy that is inspired by the Chinese legend of the Moon Goddess, and the title is Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is by Su Lin Tan. We're just gonna pretend book 2 doesn't exist because I hated book 2, but the first book is so beautiful, so whimsical, some of the most beautiful and atmospheric writing ever. It is just beautifully written, gorgeous writing. And this one, of course, is a retelling of the Chinese legend of the Moon Goddess. Our main character is the daughter of the Moon Goddess, Xing Yin. Her mother was basically exiled because she stole this elixir of immortality. The king and queen of the Celestial Empire don't know that Xing Yin exists. They don't know that the moon goddess has a daughter, and Singin embarks on this journey to basically save her mother. She needs to hide in plain sight. She ends up living in the celestial kingdom, but under a disguise. She befriends the king's son, she learns archery and magic and all of that, and it's just so fun, so enchanting, romantic, beautiful story. Next is a novella that I don't know I've ever mentioned on my channel. I don't know if I've ever talked about it, but when I read it, I was swept away. It is called Fairest Son. It is a retelling of Snow White, and it just, like I said, swept me off my feet. I was just so immersed in the world, the writing. It says, "The fair and foul courts of the Fae folk have long yearned for one to bring them together in peace. But hopes are dashed when the fairest prince and the prophecy concerning him are laid to ruin. Burdened with shame and sorrow, the prince flees to the cold mountains far above the forests and lochs with nothing but animals and goblins for company. When a human huntress stumbles upon him in her search for a legendary predator, their fates are intertwined, but she hides deadly secrets, and if he dares to trust her, he may risk the doom of both courts to an ancient evil." So I guess more of a retelling of Snow White and the Huntsman, but gender bend. So I do remember some allegorical elements to it, Christian allegorical elements, but it wasn't like in your face. I just thought it was so good, so beautiful. And the last few books I want to talk about are all middle grade. The first is a trilogy, and it is the Time trilogy by Megan Morrison. This is such a fun series. The first book is Grounded, The Adventures of Rapunzel. It goes without saying it's a retelling of Rapunzel, but I just thought it was one of the best middle grades that I've ever read. Such a fast-moving plot. The character development was on point. Rapunzel starts off as a very annoying and whiny child, and her development was just beautiful. I love this series so much. I think it's great for all ages as well. The second book I think is my favorite in the series. It is Disenchanted, The Trials of Cinderella. And of course, it's a Cinderella retelling. And book 3, it wasn't my favorite, but I still very much enjoyed it, and that is Transformed, The Perils of the Frog Prince. I'm so sad I don't have copies of this series, but I definitely need to get myself some. They are so, so good. Another middle grade I really, really loved is Rump, The True Story of Rumpelstiltskin, and this one was so funny. It was so full of funny moments, funny characters. I think kids would find this book absolutely hilarious. Rump is basically considered the butt of everyone's jokes, and he ends up finding out that he can spin straw into gold. He is friends with Red Riding Hood, and together they go on this hilarious adventure, and it's just so fun. There are pixies, trolls, a foolish queen, and just a lot of silly humor. I loved it so much. And last but not least, one of the most well-known and well-beloved fairy tale retellings, that is Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. Of course, a retelling of Cinderella, where Ella gets the gift of obedience from a foolish fairy. As a result, she has to obey every single command she is given, but she is definitely not okay with this and goes on a quest to break this curse, and the story ensues from there. It is so, so fun. Such a good book. All right, friends, those are the books that I wanted to share, some of my favorite fairy tale retellings, and because it is Faebruary, this readathon is happening, I thought it was a great time to share these books. Please let me know which ones you've read, what your thoughts were, and please recommend other fairy tale retellings based on the ones I've shared. If you think there are other ones I would really enjoy, please let me know in the comments below. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to the end of this video, put a little emoji of, I don't know, a fairy or something magical. Just put it in the comments below. I appreciate each of you for watching this video, for watching my videos in general, for being here. Thank you so much. I will see you all in my next video. Bye.